The evening sky was covered with thick gray clouds, and rain poured down heavily on the quiet street. Emma sat inside her small but cozy house, listening to the steady sound of water hitting the windows. She had just finished preparing a simple dinner for herself, warm soup and bread, when she heard something unusual. At first, she thought it was only the storm making noise. But then, clear and sharp, came the sound of knocking on her front door. It was steady but not too loud, as if someone outside was tired and did not have the strength to knock harder. Emma froze for a moment. It was late, and she rarely had visitors, especially on stormy nights. Her heart beat a little faster, but she gathered her courage and walked to the door. When she opened it, her eyes widened in surprise. Standing outside was a man, tall and slightly broad-shouldered, holding the hand of a little girl who looked no older than 7. Both of them were soaked from head to toe, their clothes dripping with rain. The little girl's hair stuck to her cheeks and her small lips trembled from the cold. "I'm sorry to bother you," the man said, his voice calm but carrying a hint of weariness. "Our car broke down nearby. We've been walking for some time, and the storm caught us. Could we possibly wait here for a while just until the rain slows down?" Emma looked at the girl first. Her big eyes, full of innocence, looked up at her with silent hope. The sight pulled at Emma's heart. Without hesitation, she stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Please, come in," she said warmly. "You must be freezing." The man gave her a grateful smile. "Thank you. Really, thank you." Once inside, Emma quickly handed them clean towels. The little girl wrapped herself in one, her small face finally showing a tiny smile of relief. Emma guided them toward the living room, where a soft carpet and a small fireplace created a welcoming space. "Sit down," Emma offered. "I'll make you both something warm to drink." The man nodded. "You're very kind. My name is Daniel, and this is my daughter, Lily." Emma smiled gently at the girl. "Hello, Lily. I'm Emma." The girl gave a shy little wave, her fingers still holding tightly to her father's hand. In the kitchen, Emma heated milk on the stove and poured it into 2 cups. She carried them back carefully, placing one in front of Daniel and one in front of Lily. The little girl's eyes brightened as she held the cup with both hands, sipping slowly. "That's much better," Daniel said, his shoulders relaxing as he took a sip. "We didn't expect the storm to get this strong." Emma sat across from them, her curiosity gently rising. "Were you traveling far?" "Not too far," Daniel answered. "We were on our way back home from visiting a friend. I thought we could make it before the storm grew worse, but the car gave up on us." Emma nodded, her eyes briefly moving to Lily, who was now focused on the warm drink in her hands. She looked so small and delicate, but her trust in her father was clear. The way she leaned against him showed how safe she felt at his side. Emma felt a soft ache in her heart. She had always loved children but never had the chance to raise one of her own. Watching Lily made her imagine, even if only for a moment, what it might feel like to be a mother. "You must both be hungry," Emma said kindly. "I made some soup earlier. It's not much, but it should help warm you." Daniel shook his head, politely. "You've already done so much. I don't want to trouble you further." "It's no trouble at all," Emma replied firmly, her tone gentle but certain. "Please let me bring it." Soon, she placed bowls of steaming soup on the table. Lily's face lit up and Daniel finally accepted, thanking her once again. The 3 of them sat together, sharing the simple meal. The storm outside raged on, but inside there was a calmness that wrapped around them like a blanket. Between spoonfuls, Daniel spoke quietly. "It's not easy raising a child alone, but I try my best for her. Nights like this, I just want to make sure she's safe." Emma looked at him closely, noticing the tiredness in his eyes, but also the strength behind it. He wasn't complaining, just sharing an honest piece of his life. She's lucky to have a father who cares so much. Emma said softly. Daniel gave a small smile, his gaze moving to Lily, who was happily finishing her soup. I think I'm the lucky one. She keeps me going. After dinner, Lily began to yawn, her small body clearly exhausted from the long day. Emma offered the couch, with extra blankets. Daniel tried to insist they shouldn't take more of her kindness, but Emma would not hear it. It's only for tonight, she said. The storm doesn't look like it will stop soon. It's safer this way. Reluctantly, Daniel agreed. He helped Lily settle on the couch, tucking her in gently. Emma watched quietly, her heart touched by the tenderness in his actions. He wasn't just a father. He was also a man carrying a quiet strength, protecting his daughter as best as he could. When Lily finally drifted into sleep, the room became quiet except for the soft crackle of the fireplace. Daniel looked at Emma, his voice low. I don't know how to thank you. Most people wouldn't have opened their door to strangers in the middle of the night. Emma shook her head with a smile. Sometimes we just have to trust our hearts. Tonight mine told me to help. Daniel studied her for a moment, as if trying to understand how someone could show such kindness without asking for anything in return. He nodded slowly, his gratitude clear in his eyes. The storm continued outside, but inside Emma's home there was warmth, not just from the fire, but from the quiet bond forming between three people who were strangers only hours ago. Emma had no idea that this single night, born out of chance and compassion, would change the course of her life forever. The morning sun peeked through the curtains, spreading a soft golden light into the living room. Emma woke earlier than usual, her thoughts still carrying the memory of the unexpected visitors from last night. She moved quietly into the kitchen, preparing tea for herself. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind fresh air and a sky that was slowly turning blue. When she stepped back into the living room, she saw Lily curled up on the couch, still sleeping peacefully under the blanket she had given her. Daniel was already awake, sitting near the fireplace. He looked thoughtful, his eyes resting on his daughter with quiet affection. Good morning, Emma greeted gently. Daniel turned, offering a polite smile. Good morning. I hope we didn't trouble you too much last night. Emma shook her head. Not at all. I'm glad I could help. You both looked so tired. Daniel gave a soft laugh, though it carried a note of weariness. We were. It had been a long day even before the storm. Emma didn't want to press too much, but something about his calm tone made her curious. Still, she decided to respect his silence. Instead, she asked, Would you like some tea? That would be wonderful, he replied, as Emma poured the tea. Lily stirred awake, blinking sleepily. When her eyes fell on Emma, her face brightened. Good morning, she said softly, her voice still heavy with sleep. Emma smiled warmly. Good morning, Lily. Did you sleep well? The little girl nodded, rubbing her eyes. Yes, thank you for letting us stay. Her words were simple, but they touched Emma deeply. She walked over and adjusted the blanket around the child's shoulders, a small motherly gesture that came naturally to her. Would you like some breakfast? Emma asked. Lily's eyes lit up with excitement. Yes, please, Daniel chuckled. She never says no to breakfast. Emma went into the kitchen again, preparing scrambled eggs and toast. She set the table while Lily eagerly climbed onto a chair, her legs swinging back and forth. Daniel sat beside her, watching with quiet gratitude. As they ate, conversation flowed more easily than the night before. Lily spoke about her favorite books and how she loved drawing little animals. Emma listened with genuine interest, asking gentle questions that made the girl feel important. Do you like stories too, Emma? Lily asked suddenly. Very much, Emma replied. In fact, I used to read bedtime stories to my niece whenever she visited. Lily's eyes grew wide with curiosity. Will you read me one sometime? Emma hesitated only for a moment before nodding. Of course. I'd love to. The girl clapped her hands in excitement, and Daniel's gaze softened as he looked at Emma. He said nothing, but the expression on his face was one of quiet appreciation. After breakfast, Daniel stepped outside to check on his car. Emma stayed, with Lily, who followed her around the kitchen, asking questions about everything she saw. It reminded Emma of her younger years, when she often dreamed of a house filled with family, laughter, and little footsteps running across the floor. Emma, Lily said suddenly, holding onto her hand. You're very nice. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. And you're very sweet, she replied, giving the girl's hand a gentle squeeze. When Daniel returned, his clothes carried a faint smell of the outdoors. The car will need a mechanic, he said. It's not something I can fix quickly. Emma thought for a moment. There's a small repair shop not far from here. I can give you their number. That would help, he said, relieved. While Daniel made the call, Lily wandered over to Emma again. Can I see your books? She asked shyly. Emma smiled and guided her to a small shelf near the window. She had a modest collection, mostly novels, but also a few children's storybooks she had kept for sentimental reasons. Lily picked one, with colorful pictures, and carried it back to the couch. Will you read? She asked eagerly. Emma sat beside her, opening the book. Daniel watched from across the room as Emma's gentle voice filled the air, weaving magic into the simple words on the page. Lily leaned against her, her small head resting on Emma's arm as she listened with full attention. For Daniel, it was a rare sight. His daughter often struggled to feel comfortable with strangers, but here she was, clinging to Emma as if she had known her for years. He felt something stir inside him, a quiet sense of trust, and perhaps even something deeper, though he pushed that thought away quickly. When the story ended, Lily sighed happily. That was the best, she whispered. Emma closed the book with a smile. We'll read more next time. The girl's eyes sparkled. Promise? Promise, Emma said softly. Daniel cleared his throat gently, as though trying to pull himself back into the moment. The mechanic said they'll send someone by afternoon. We should be able to leave then. Emma nodded, though part of her felt an unexpected heaviness at the thought. She had only known them for a short time, yet the little girl had already found a space in her heart. As the hours passed, the three of them shared simple conversations. Daniel spoke about his work, though only in general terms, never mentioning details. Emma noticed the way he carefully chose his words, protecting both his privacy and his daughter's peace. Still, she learned enough to see that he was a man carrying responsibility on his shoulders. He didn't complain, but his eyes revealed a story of long days and quiet struggles. When afternoon came, the mechanic arrived and began working on the car outside. Lily, however, didn't want to leave Emma's side. Do we really have to go? She asked her father, her small voice full of sadness. Daniel knelt beside her. We can't stay forever, Lily, but we'll always remember how kind Emma has been. Lily's face fell, but she nodded reluctantly. She turned to Emma and hugged her tightly, her little arms clinging with surprising strength. Thank you for everything, she whispered. Emma hugged her back, her heart swelling with emotion. Take care of yourself, Lily, and remember, you're always welcome here. Daniel stepped forward then, his voice steady but touched with sincerity. You've done more for us than you realize. I don't think I'll ever forget your kindness. Emma smiled softly, though her eyes glistened. It was nothing, really. Anyone would have done the same. But Daniel shook his head, as though he knew better. As the car engine finally roared back to life, Emma stood by the door, watching father and daughter prepare to leave. She waved as they drove away, her chest heavy with a strange emptiness. She told herself it was just a brief encounter, nothing more. Yet deep inside, she sensed that the bond formed in one night could not be forgotten so easily, and little did she know, their paths were only just beginning to cross. The storm had passed, leaving the world outside fresh and quiet. Drops of water still clung to the leaves of the trees, sparkling in the early morning light. Birds began to sing softly, as if welcoming a new day. Inside Emma's house, the air carried the smell of freshly brewed tea and toasted bread. Emma moved quietly through her kitchen, preparing breakfast for her unexpected guests. Though it had only been one night, she had grown used to their presence, the gentle way Daniel spoke to his daughter, the curious questions Lily asked, the sound of soft laughter that filled the rooms. She wondered how empty the house might feel once they left. Daniel appeared in the doorway, dressed in the same clothes but now neatly dried. He looked rested, though his eyes still carried the weight of responsibility. "Good morning," he said politely. Emma smiled. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" He nodded. "Better than I expected. Thank you again for everything." His voice was calm, but Emma could sense the depth of his gratitude. Soon, Lily came skipping in, her hair still a little messy from sleep. She ran straight to Emma and hugged her legs without hesitation. "Good morning, Emma," she said brightly. Emma bent down and brushed a strand of hair from the child's forehead. "Good morning, sweetheart. Did you sleep well?" "Yes," Lily said, nodding with energy. "I had the best dreams." Emma chuckled softly. "I'm glad to hear that. Now breakfast is ready. Let's eat together." They all sat at the table, sharing toast and eggs. It was a simple meal, but the comfort of sitting together made it feel special. Lily talked happily about the book Emma had read to her the day before, and Daniel listened quietly, his expression softening every time his daughter laughed. Emma felt her heart warm at the sight. She couldn't help but admire the strong bond between father and daughter. Despite his quiet nature, Daniel's love for Lily shone in every small gesture, in the way he passed her food, in the way he listened carefully to her stories, and in the way he gently corrected her when she became too excited. After breakfast, Daniel checked his watch and sighed softly. "The mechanic should arrive soon. We'll have to be on our way." Emma's chest tightened at his words, though she kept her expression calm. "Of course, I'll pack some food for you to take on the road." "You've done more than enough already," Daniel said firmly, but his tone carried warmth rather than refusal. "I don't mind," Emma replied with a smile. "It's no trouble at all." While Emma prepared a small bag with sandwiches and fruit, Lily followed her around the kitchen. The little girl tugged at Emma's sleeve and asked shyly, "Will you miss me when we go?" Emma paused, touched by the innocent question. She knelt down so she was eye level with the child. "Yes, I will," she admitted softly. "I'll miss you very much." Lily's face lit up. "I'll miss you too. Maybe one day we can visit again?" Emma smiled and brushed her fingers gently across the girl's cheek. "I would like that." By the time the mechanic arrived, the morning sun was shining brightly, drying the wet streets. Daniel went outside to speak with the man, leaving Emma and Lily together for a few more minutes. Lily picked up the storybook from the couch and handed it to Emma. "Can you read just one more page before we go?" Emma hesitated for a moment, then sat down with her. She opened the book and read softly, her voice wrapping around the words with care. Lily listened intently, resting her small head on Emma's shoulder. It was a short page, but to both of them, it felt like a treasure. When Emma closed the book, Lily whispered, "Promise you won't forget me?" Emma's throat tightened with emotion. "I could never forget you, Lily." Just then, Daniel re-entered the house. "The car is ready," he said. His eyes moved to Emma and Lily, taking in the tender moment between them. He looked thoughtful, as though memorizing the image. It was time. Emma walked them to the door, her steps slower than usual. She handed Daniel the small food bag, which he accepted with quiet thanks. Then she bent down one last time to hug Lily. The girl's arms wrapped around her neck tightly, and Emma held her close, wishing the moment could last longer. "Take care, sweetheart," Emma whispered. "Listen to your father and keep smiling." "I will," Lily said softly. Finally, Daniel spoke, his voice calm but full of meaning. "Emma, you've shown us kindness I can never repay. Last night could have been much harder, but you made it warm instead. I won't forget this." Emma met his gaze and saw the sincerity in his eyes. "You don't need to repay anything. I was glad to help." For a moment, silence filled the space between them. Neither seemed to know what else to say, yet both understood that something unspoken had passed between them. A bond had formed, fragile but real. Then Daniel took Lily's hand, and together they stepped outside. The car engine started, rumbling steadily. Emma stood on her porch, watching as they drove away down the quiet street. She raised her hand in a wave, and Lily pressed her small face to the window, waving back until the car disappeared from sight. When the sound of the engine faded, Emma stood for a while in the stillness. The house, which had felt so full of life moments ago, now seemed unusually quiet. She walked back inside, her eyes falling on the storybook lying on the couch. Picking it up, she traced the cover gently with her fingers. It was strange, she thought. They had only been here for one night, yet it felt as if they had left behind an echo, a warmth that lingered in the walls of her home and in the corners of her heart. Emma told herself it was just a brief meeting, something to smile about whenever. She remembered it. Life would return to normal, and she would go back to her work and her quiet evenings. But deep inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that their paths were not finished crossing. Fate had a way of weaving lives together, sometimes in the most unexpected ways. Emma sighed softly, placing the book back on the shelf. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window, staring out at the bright morning. The world outside was moving forward, yet she carried within her the memory of a little girl's laughter and a father's quiet gratitude. And though she didn't know it yet, this was not the end of their story. It was only the beginning. A week passed quickly, and Emma returned to her normal routine. Each morning she walked to her office building, carrying her bag and greeting the security guard at the front desk with a polite smile. Her work was steady and important to her. She managed reports and helped organize projects in a company that had recently been facing changes. Still, her mind sometimes wandered back to the rainy night. She remembered the sound of Lily's small laugh, the warmth of her hug, and the look of quiet gratitude in Daniel's eyes. Emma often told herself not to think too much about it. After all, it had been a single meeting. People came and went, in life all the time. Yet, deep inside, she carried the memory like a small secret. On Monday morning, when she reached the office, she noticed a buzz of excitement among her co-workers. People gathered in small groups, whispering and sharing rumors. Emma placed her bag on her desk and asked her friend, Claire, what was happening. "Haven't you heard?" Claire whispered eagerly. "The company has a new CEO. He's starting today." Emma blinked in surprise. She had heard about the recent leadership changes but didn't realize the new head would arrive so soon. Before she could ask more, the employees were called into the main hall. Everyone gathered, curious to see who would lead the company now. The air was filled with both nerves and excitement. Emma stood near the back, quietly observing, her hands folded neatly in front of her. The doors opened, and the room fell silent. A tall man entered, wearing a perfectly tailored suit. His steps were steady, his posture strong, and his presence commanded attention. Emma's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. It was Daniel, the same man who had stood at her doorstep in the storm. The same father who had shared her dinner table, whose daughter had fallen asleep on her couch. Emma's mind raced, but she forced herself to stay calm. She didn't want to draw attention. No one else in the room knew what she knew, that this man, their new CEO, was not just a leader, but also the guest she had once sheltered. Daniel stood before the staff, his expression composed and professional. "Good morning," he began, his voice steady and confident. "I'm Daniel Hayes. I want to thank you all for welcoming me. This company has great potential, and I believe together we can achieve something even greater." His words carried authority, yet they were gentle enough to put people at ease. The employees listened carefully, some even nodding in approval. Emma, however, felt her heart pounding in her chest. She wondered if he would recognize her among so many faces. When the meeting ended, Daniel's eyes swept across the room briefly. For a moment, Emma thought she saw his gaze pause on her, just long enough to make her wonder if he remembered. But then he moved on, shaking hands with the senior managers and speaking with ease. Emma returned to her desk, her thoughts spinning. Of all the people, of all the places, fate had brought him back into her life, not as a stranded stranger, but as her new boss. The rest of the day felt unusually long. Emma tried to focus on her work, but she kept noticing Daniel walking through the office, speaking with different teams. His presence was calm, never rushed, and he listened carefully to those around him. It was clear he wasn't the type of leader who only gave orders. He wanted to understand. By late afternoon, Emma was organizing files when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned, and there he was, Daniel himself standing at her desk. "Emma," he said, his tone soft but certain. Her heart skipped a beat. "Yes, sir?" she asked quickly, trying to sound professional. Daniel studied her for a moment, his lips curving into the faintest smile. "I wanted to say hello properly. I recognize you." Emma's breath caught again. She wasn't sure how to respond, especially with colleagues nearby. She lowered her voice. "I didn't expect to see you here." Daniel gave a small nod, his eyes warm but composed. "Neither did I. Life has a way of surprising us." Then, with a professional tone, he added, "I look forward to working with you." Before Emma could reply, another manager called for his attention, and he walked away. She sat frozen for a moment, her mind replaying his words. He remembered. That evening, as employees began to leave, Emma stayed a little longer to finish her tasks. The office grew quieter until only a few people remained. She was gathering her things when she heard a familiar voice again. "You work hard," Daniel said, approaching her desk. His suit jacket was unbuttoned now, making him look less formal and more approachable. "I try to," Emma replied, managing a small smile. Daniel glanced around, noticing the emptiness of the office. "It's quieter now, easier to talk." Emma hesitated. "You didn't have to say anything earlier about remembering me." Daniel shook his head gently. "I couldn't pretend. You opened your home to me and Lily when you didn't even know us. That kind of kindness is not something I can forget." Emma lowered her gaze, feeling warmth rise in her cheeks. "It was just one night. Anyone would have helped." "Not everyone would," Daniel said softly. There was a pause. Then he added, "Lily still talks about you. She remembers the story you read to her." Emma's heart softened at the mention of the little girl. "She's a wonderful child. I'm glad she felt comfortable with me." Daniel smiled faintly, his eyes thoughtful. "She doesn't trust people easily, but with you, it was different." Silence stretched between them for a moment. Emma felt the weight of unspoken words, but neither of them pushed further. Finally, Daniel straightened, his professional side returning. "I should let you go home. We'll see each other tomorrow." Emma nodded, her voice quiet. "Good night, Mr. Hayes." His smile deepened slightly. "Good night, Emma." As she walked out of the building, Emma's thoughts swirled with questions. What did this mean? Could she balance her role as an employee with the memory of the night they had shared under such unusual circumstances? The cool evening air greeted her as she stepped onto the street, but inside, her heart was warm, filled with something she couldn't quite name. She had thought their paths had parted forever, but now destiny had placed them in the same world again, and somehow she knew this was only the beginning of a much deeper journey. The days that followed felt both ordinary and unusual for Emma. On the surface, nothing seemed different. She worked at her desk, answered emails, and joined team meetings like always. Yet, beneath the routine, there was a quiet tension she could not ignore. Every time Daniel walked into the office, she felt her heart beat faster. Daniel, however, carried himself with steady calm. He treated everyone with respect, listening carefully to each person's ideas. His presence brought a new energy to the workplace, and people began to feel hopeful about the company's future. Still, Emma often caught him glancing in her direction during meetings, his eyes holding a recognition that no one else seemed to notice. One afternoon, Emma was working late on a report. Most of her colleagues had already left, leaving the office nearly silent. She focused on her computer screen, determined to finish before heading home. Suddenly, a small voice broke the quiet. "Emma!" Startled, she turned, and there was Lily, running across the room with her bright smile. Emma blinked in surprise, then laughed softly. "Lily! What are you doing here?" The little girl rushed into her arms, hugging her tightly. "Daddy had to work, so I came with him. I wanted to see you." Emma's heart melted. She hugged the child back, warmth flooding her chest. "I missed you too." A moment later, Daniel entered the room, holding a small bag in his hand. He looked slightly apologetic. "I hope she's not bothering you. She was excited when she heard your name." Emma shook her head, smiling. "Not at all. She's welcome any time." Daniel's eyes softened. "She doesn't usually get this attached to people," he admitted, "but she hasn't stopped talking about you since that night." Emma glanced down at Lily, who was now sitting on her lap, swinging her legs happily. "She's a very special girl," Emma said gently. For a while, Lily kept Emma company, asking her to tell another story. Emma pulled out a notebook from her drawer, showing Lily some simple sketches she had drawn during her free time. The girl's face lit up, and soon the two of them were laughing together as Emma invented a short tale to go along with the drawings. Daniel stood quietly nearby, watching. His usual expression of calm professionalism was replaced by something softer. It was as if he was seeing a side of Emma that reminded him of the warmth he had been missing in his life. Later, as Lily grew sleepy, Daniel thanked Emma again. "You've given her something precious," he said quietly. "She feels safe with you." Emma shook her head, touched by his words. "She gives me joy too. I haven't felt this kind of happiness in a long time." There was a pause, filled with unspoken emotions. Daniel seemed as if he wanted to say more, but instead, he guided Lily gently into his arms and prepared to leave. "Good night, Emma," he said softly, his voice carrying more meaning than the simple words suggested. "Good night," Emma replied, her heart quietly aching as she watched them go. The next day, the office was buzzing with activity again. Emma tried to stay focused, but her thoughts kept drifting. She reminded herself that Daniel was her boss now, and she had to remain professional. Still, her heart resisted, remembering Lily's hug and Daniel's warm gaze. That evening, as she was leaving, she found Daniel waiting by the elevator. It seemed like a coincidence, but the way he looked at her suggested otherwise. "Long day?" he asked kindly. Emma nodded. "Yes, but the work is moving forward." Daniel gave a small smile. "I noticed. You've been doing excellent work. I appreciate your dedication." His praise warmed her more than she expected. She lowered her gaze, trying to hide the faint blush rising on her cheeks. Thank you. They stepped into the elevator together, the quiet hum surrounding them. For a moment, silence stretched, broken only when Daniel spoke softly. I meant what I said yesterday. About Lily. She doesn't open her heart easily. But with you, it was different. Emma turned to him, her voice gentle. Maybe because she reminds me of something I've always wanted, a family. Love. I felt it with her, even in such a short time. Daniel looked at her deeply, his expression unreadable but full of emotion. I think she felt the same. The elevator doors opened and they stepped out into the cool evening air. For a moment they stood side by side, the city lights glowing softly around them. Neither spoke, but the silence was not empty. It was filled with quiet understanding. Over the next week their connection grew stronger, though carefully hidden beneath the surface of daily work. Emma noticed how Daniel would pause at her desk a little longer than necessary, asking about her projects, but always leaving her with a smile that lingered in her mind. One evening, after another long meeting, Daniel invited Emma to join him for coffee in the break room. They sat across from each other, the office mostly empty around them. Sometimes I wonder, Daniel said thoughtfully, if life brings people together for a reason. Emma listened quietly, her hands wrapped around her cup. Do you believe that? He nodded slowly. I didn't once, but then there was that night. If you hadn't opened your door, things might have been very different. You made me realize there's kindness in the world I had almost forgotten. Emma's heart ached at his honesty. And you reminded me that sometimes even one small act can bring unexpected happiness. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, the world outside seemed to disappear. Neither said the words they were both thinking, but the unspoken feeling grew stronger between them. Finally, Daniel stood, his professional side returning. We should get back to work. Emma smiled softly. Yes. But as he walked away, she felt a certainty forming in her heart. This was no ordinary connection. It was quiet, gentle, and growing, like a seed planted on that stormy night now beginning to bloom. She didn't know where it would lead, but she knew one thing for sure. She was no longer walking this path alone. Emma never thought her life would change so much because of one stormy night. At first, she had only opened her door out of kindness, giving a tired father and his little girl a place to rest. Now, weeks later, her days felt brighter, lighter, and strangely full because of them. At work, she noticed the small changes in herself. She smiled more, she spoke with more confidence, and even her colleagues teased her about looking happier than before. Emma brushed it off with nervous laughter, but deep inside, she knew the reason. It was Daniel and Lily. The little girl's cheerful visits had become more frequent. Whenever Daniel had to stay late, Lily would sit in the break room drawing pictures, or asking Emma to read with her. Emma gladly agreed every time. She felt a joy she hadn't known in years. One evening, Emma found Lily waiting at her desk, holding up a drawing proudly. Look, Emma, I made this for you. It was a picture of 3 people holding hands under a sunny sky. The figures were simple, but Emma recognized them right away. Lily in the middle, Daniel on one side, and herself on the other. Emma's throat tightened. She smiled gently and hugged Lily. It's beautiful. Thank you, sweetheart. Daniel arrived just then, and when his eyes landed on the drawing, something shifted in his expression. He looked at Emma for a moment, as though trying to read her thoughts. But instead of saying anything, he only gave a soft smile. A few days later, Daniel invited Emma to join him and Lily for a weekend outing. We're going to the park, he said casually. Lily keeps asking if you can come. Emma hesitated, unsure if it was the right thing to do. He was her boss, after all. and she didn't want anyone to misunderstand. But Lily's hopeful eyes and Daniel's kind tone made it difficult to refuse. "I'd love to," she finally said. That Saturday, Emma arrived at the park and was greeted by Lily's excited wave. The little girl grabbed her hand instantly, pulling her toward the playground. "Come on, Emma, play with me." Emma laughed as they ran together, her worries melting away. She pushed Lily on the swing, her laughter mixing with the child's, and for a moment, Emma felt as though she belonged there, like this was her place all along. Daniel watched from a short distance, his hands in his pockets, his expression calm yet full of quiet warmth. Seeing the two of them together stirred something deep within him. He had always focused on work, on responsibility, but watching Emma with Lily reminded him of what truly mattered. Later, the three of them sat on the grass, sharing sandwiches and fruit. The afternoon sun painted everything golden. Lily leaned against Emma, yawning softly, already growing tired after playing so much. Daniel glanced at Emma. "You're good with her," he said in a low voice. Emma smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "She's easy to love." There was silence for a moment, filled only by the sound of birds in the trees. Daniel's eyes lingered on her, thoughtful, almost tender. Emma felt her cheeks warm and she quickly looked down at her hands. As days passed, Emma noticed that Daniel had begun to open up more. During quiet moments at work, he would share little pieces of his life, the struggles of raising Lily alone, the weight of his new responsibilities, the loneliness that sometimes crept in. Emma listened with care, her heart softening with every word. She realized he wasn't just her boss. He was a man carrying burdens with quiet strength, doing his best for his daughter. One evening, as they were leaving the office, Emma gathered the courage to speak. "You know, you don't always have to carry everything alone. Sometimes it's okay to lean on others." Daniel paused, looking at her with gentle surprise. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Maybe you're right. I'm not used to trusting people that easily." Emma's voice softened. "Then maybe start small." For a moment, their eyes locked, and something unspoken passed between them. It was not loud or dramatic. It was quiet, but it carried a depth that neither could deny. One rainy evening, Emma received a call. It was Daniel. His voice sounded tired. "Emma, I'm sorry to bother you, but Lily's asking if you can come over for dinner. She insisted." Emma's heart skipped. She hesitated, then smiled softly. "Of course, I'd be happy to." When she arrived, Lily greeted her with the brightest smile, dragging her into the cozy apartment. The table was already set simply, nothing fancy, just pasta and salad. But to Emma, it felt warmer than any meal she had shared in a long time. Throughout dinner, Lily kept telling stories, making both adults laugh. At one point, the girl looked at them with a cheeky grin and said, "You both should always eat with me. It's more fun that way." Emma and Daniel exchanged a glance, both unable to hide their smiles. After dinner, when Lily had gone to bed, Daniel walked Emma to the door. The apartment was quiet now, the sound of rain tapping softly against the windows. "Thank you for coming," Daniel said sincerely. It meant a lot to her, and to me. Emma's voice was gentle. "Thank you for letting me be a part of it." For a long moment, they stood there in silence, the closeness between them growing stronger. Neither spoke the feelings that were slowly blooming, but both could feel them, quiet, steady, undeniable. In the days that followed, Emma noticed her life changing in small, beautiful ways. She wasn't just working anymore, she was living. She found herself looking forward to every new day, every small moment spent with Lily's laughter or Daniel's thoughtful words. And though nothing had been said aloud, Emma could sense it. A bond was forming. It wasn't just kindness or friendship anymore. It was something deeper, something fragile yet strong, something that both scared and warmed her. She didn't know what the future would bring, but for the first time in years, Emma wasn't afraid to hope. The weekend arrived, bringing with it a quiet, gentle calm. Emma sat by her window, sipping tea, the morning sun spilling across the table. She felt lighter than she had in months, her heart soft with the memories of the past weeks, the laughter of Lily, the gentle presence of Daniel, and the small moments that had grown into something meaningful. Her phone buzzed, and she saw a message from Daniel. "Would you like to join us for a walk at the park today?" Lily insists. Emma smiled, typing back quickly. "I'd love to. See you soon." The park was alive with soft greenery and the sounds of children playing. Lily spotted Emma first, waving her arms excitedly. She ran into her arms, hugging tightly. Emma laughed, hugging her back. "I missed you," she said warmly. "I missed you too," Lily exclaimed. Then she looked up at Daniel, a mischievous smile on her face. "Daddy, we need to tell Emma something." Emma tilted her head curiously. "Oh? What is it?" Lily jumped up and down. "We are a team, a super team. We stick together forever." Daniel laughed softly, his eyes on Emma. "She has a way of making declarations," he said, his voice quiet but full of affection. Emma smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I'd be honored to be part of your team," she said softly. The three of them walked along the winding paths, the soft sunlight brushing the treetops. Emma noticed how natural it felt to be there, to walk beside them, to share in these small, precious moments. She glanced at Daniel, who walked slightly ahead, his posture relaxed, but his eyes often meeting hers. Something unspoken passed between them, a quiet acknowledgement of the connection that had been growing since that stormy night. They found a quiet spot by the pond where the water shimmered in the sunlight. Lily ran ahead, throwing small pebbles into the water, giggling at the ripples. Emma watched her, smiling, then turned to Daniel. "It's beautiful here," she said softly. He nodded, his gaze following hers to the shimmering pond. "It is," he replied, then paused. "Emma, I've been meaning to tell you something." Emma's heart skipped a beat, though she remained calm. "Yes?" she asked gently. Daniel took a deep breath. "That night, when you let us stay, it meant more to me than I can ever explain. You didn't just help me and Lily, you reminded me that there's warmth and kindness in the world. And I haven't stopped thinking about it since." Emma felt her chest tighten. She had imagined this moment many times, but hearing his words now made her heart flutter. "Daniel, She stopped, searching for the right words, and realized she didn't need to say much. Her smile, soft and genuine, spoke for her. He stepped closer, his voice low. "I want us to move forward, together if you're willing. Not just as friends, not just with Lily, but all of us. I want to build something real, something lasting." Emma felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She nodded, her voice quiet but steady. "Yes, I want that too." At that moment, Lily ran back to them, holding both of their hands. "See? I told you. We're a team." Daniel laughed, leaning down to ruffle her hair gently. "She's right," he said, glancing at Emma. "We are a team." The three of them sat by the pond, their hands intertwined, feeling a sense of peace that neither had felt in a long time. The world around them seemed to fade away. The soft rustle of leaves, the chirping birds, the gentle wind, all of it became a backdrop for a quiet, perfect moment. Emma realized how much her life had changed since that night. One act of kindness had led to laughter, trust, and now love. She looked at Daniel, and for the first time in years, she felt fully understood, fully seen. Daniel's voice broke her thoughts. Emma, thank you for everything, for your heart, your kindness, for being you. She smiled, brushing her fingers along his hand. And thank you for letting me be part of your life, for trusting me, for trusting us. For a while, they simply sat together, watching the sun dip lower in the sky. Lily rested her head against Emma's shoulder, tired but content. Daniel wrapped an arm around them both, holding them close. The moment was quiet, yet it carried everything: love, trust, hope, and a sense of belonging. Finally, Lily looked up, her eyes twinkling. "Can we come here every weekend?" Emma and Daniel exchanged a glance and nodded in unison. "Yes," they said softly. The sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest, a sense of completion. Life had led them here, from a stormy night, to laughter, to understanding, to love. Daniel turned to her, his voice quiet and tender. "No matter what challenges come, we face them together. Just like Lily said, we're a team." Emma smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "A team," she whispered, feeling the truth of the words settle deep in her heart. The world outside continued its rhythm, but for Emma, Daniel, and Lily, time seemed to pause. This was more than a beginning. It was a promise of happiness, trust, and the quiet strength of family, built not by blood, but by care, kindness, and love. And for the first time in a long time, Emma knew that no matter what happened, they would always have each other. Together they walked back through the park, the soft glow of the sunset following them, hearts full, knowing that their journey had only just begun.